My reasoning was very simple. I became a managing director of the world's biggest and oldest elevator company, Otis 222 Marshall Street, in 1996, just 2 years into democracy. If I was the MD of Otis South Africa, it would have been noteworthy. But I was MD of Otis Africa, looking after 33 of the then 53, now 54 African countries. So first 3 years I reported to Paris, the last 2 I reported to Madrid. So I figured, look, being at this level, at the highest policy and decision-making level of corporate South Africa, even if I'm thick, surely I have something to share. That's why you must buy the book to test the warranties and the bona fides that I'm giving to you tonight, that I think I've got something to share. Let me add on the indigestion that Friek had already started giving you about where we are as a country, as a people with great natural endowments. For some reason, South Africans love this notion of self-harm, inflicted, self-inflicted pain, cutting our nose to spite our face. Because all our problems are self-made. It's like we love committing economic suicide, because that's what we do. Moody's just revised our GDP growth figures from 1.3% GDP to 1%. The NDP 2030, which is our national economic vision, says we ought to be growing at the high end at 5.4% GDP to be able to absorb the 180,000 young graduates that get onto the job market, often with inappropriate skills. For the last 10 years, our average growth has been around 3%. Last 48 months, we're not even touching 2 percentage points. The whole of last year, we clocked 0.8 GDP growth. So our potential is here as a country and as a people. Our performance is here. All of it because of the choices that we made. Not because of anything else. So let me start by the recent ructions, questioning the mandate and the independence of the South African Reserve Bank. And I think we need to ask ourselves, and we had this conversation with the president of the country, President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, on a Friday, just before he announced his cabinet, just the 3 of us in the room. And we said, if you're going to question the mandate of the South African Reserve Bank, we need to ask ourselves, for what good end? To achieve what? Because we're one of only 7 countries in the world whose central banks are privately owned. So after we nationalize it, what are we going to get that we don't have now? Because the mandate of the South African Reserve Bank does not come from you as the executive. It derives its mandate directly from the Constitution. Article 224, Section 1, it says the primary mandate of the Reserve Bank is currency protection and inflation targeting in the fulfillment of a sustainable and balanced economic growth. That last paragraph has in it built job creation and economic growth. So the door is open, we deem it fit to kick it down. Therefore, it's absolutely not necessary to cause jitters in the market and want to amend the Constitution, which are 4 bills, build sufficient braces and handrails to ensure that we don't undertake that task lightly. That to amend the Constitution, we need a 2/3 majority. So we need to think deeply and profoundly. This is not like amending at the drop of a hat. But we're doing the same thing. At the 54th ANC elective conference in Nasrec, we took a resolution that says we must amend the constitution to effect land expropriation without compensation. The people who are taking these resolutions are demonstrating beyond any shadow of doubt to themselves and to us that they haven't even read the constitution. Because had they read the constitution, they would have gone to section 25. They would have looked at article 3A, and it says in line number 8, when conditions of fair and equitable have been adequately fulfilled, compensation can be down to 0. That is expropriation without compensation. So here we're not dealing with a lack of policy adequacy as much as we are dealing with the failure of implementation, like everything else around South Africa in the last 25 years. The doing part, we fall dismally short. If there was an Olympic sport about the development of plans, I guarantee we would win hands down, because we've got plans for every orifice. And we only need to look at the 400 MPs of President Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela's cabinet. 27th of April, 1994, inaugurated 10th of May, the following month. That of all those, the least resource was the department that deals with this issue of land. 25 years into democracy, is the same department that up till today still does not have a permanent land charge. Doesn't have it. Because we have been lazy, the constitution is very explicit and adequate. All that needed to be done is to promulgate the commensurate legislation. That's all it is. But because we are focused on other things, 20 years we wake up, we can't say as the ANC-led government that we have failed. Therefore, we're looking for something to blame. And we say the constitution is inadequate. In any case, we are having a wrong conversation. Because we shouldn't be talking about expropriation without compensation. That's a small subset in the broader scheme of things. We should be talking about land reform. That's the bigger question. Because in land reform, there are 3 issues. There's the issue of restitution. The land that was forcibly taken from the Africans must be restored to the original owners. That's justice. Secondly, we should be talking about land redistribution. Because you can't have 90% of the population squashed in 13% of the most arid, mineral scarce part of the country and think it's sustainable. My grandmother used to say, when your neighbor is hungry, you can't sleep at night, not the neighbor. Lastly, it's about land development. 25 years into it, we haven't even completed a land audit. So we don't know who owns what land and for what purpose. But what we do know, for sure, is that actually government is the biggest holder of pockets of land. So why are they coming to us when they have the piece of land? So before you worry when you live in Stellenbosch to say this ANC-led government is coming for your farm, that's not what we're saying as big business. Because the first, they could give just title deeds. You see, not all black people want to grow carrots. But all black people want to own their land and their houses. That's all they want. They want to own their houses. So we estimate that by 2010 they paid for their houses, especially in Soweto, 4-fold. So all this ANC-led government need to do is to give the 3.5 million people in Soweto. I pause for effect. This is the population greater than Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, and Swaziland. Because all of those, their population are just touching 2 million, some of them less. In Soweto, you've got more than that. You give them a title deed on Tuesday. On Friday, they can leverage this, go to the bank, provide it as collateral, and start their own small and medium enterprises. Because that's where jobs are created in large numbers, not our members. because there we've experienced job loss. And we do the same thing with national health insurance. And I'm not even touching on the fact that why would we want to give government another bank when they already own 6? And the 6 that they own, they're doing a bad job of managing. You can count them, the Land Bank, IDC, DBSA, more than 6. They even own now 100% of the African Bank. So after industrial scale looting, now we want to give them another bank. Unless we are stupid. So let me just round this up by saying there is no doubt that out of all the challenges that are confronting us, South Africa, we're very lucky because we know all our problems. We have ventilated and articulated them. And on the one hand, we also know the solutions. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We know. NDP 2030 talks about the 9 things that we have to do, having diagnosed what our problems are. Like I said, it's the execution where we're bad. And it was General George Patton who said, great wars are won by good execution, not great plans. Because good execution will save even a mediocre plan. How then does it manifest when we're talking about the advent of the new dawn? What are the things that are keeping us awake at night? There is no doubt that all of us collectively have not succeeded in eradicating the legacy of apartheid. We haven't. All of us. Myself included. And I'm not talking about 48 years of National Party rule. I'm not talking about the 100-odd years of separate development that gave us the 1913 Land Act. I'm talking about the more than 350 years of colonialism. So you can't exclude, subjugate people for that long and say 25 years, you've been free now, so let's get on with the business of business without giving them the boots and the straps with which they need to lift themselves up. So black people are not perpetually dependent on some crash for the rest of their lives. No. They just want to decay. And the one that keeps me awake at night is that lawlessness has now become an epidemic. That's what the new dawn must address with a sense of agency. Because without that, we might as well all pack up and go to where I don't know. Because I've only one person. So, what can business do moving forward? Then I want to conclude on that so that I sit down and shut up. Gone are the days when business used to look at government and say, you must give us a conducive environment in which we can thrive. Gone are the days when we as Big I represent big business. BLSA formed in 1960, before even I was born, has 86 CEOs. 53 of them are responsible for more than half the GDP of this country. They employ 13.5 million people. Government in all 3 tiers, 2.3 million, 1.3 million directly. Therefore, we have a disproportionate voice and disproportionate resources. So one of the days when we can say to government, you must give us regulatory certainty and policy stability. One of the days when we used to look at labor and say, you are too inflexible, you strike for too long, 5 months, look, you have killed Lonmin and now Sibanye Gold. What are we prepared to do? That's what the title of my book says. Lift your eyes. If I had time, and I will not unpack it, I was going to say business must lead on 6 big burning platform issues. Number 1, business must lead on land. Because a lot of our members are sitting on land that is lying fallow, that they are not using, that they can make available to government. I said first, give the people of Soweto title deeds. Secondly, make parcels of land available from the South African National Defence Force. Anybody that's been to Cape Town, N2 from the airport towards Paarl, just before Century City, And you see towers for the army when we used to be at war with the rest of the world. I mean, that's prime real estate. The army doesn't need that. You make that available, you could stimulate this economy quite successfully. The third, and then you make these parcels of land owned by government, especially for housing, because that's what people need. You see, if you have nothing to lose, you'll ban libraries and the only ambulance that serves two communities, because you've got nothing to lose. So that's why business must lead on land. Business must also lead on transformation. See, this economy must look like us. This is not an outpost of Europe. It must be broadly reflective of the demographics. 51% of 57.8 million South Africans are women. That's people that don't look like me. 2019, we pay women 76% of what we pay men for work of equal value. And yet we know that when you put a smartphone in the hands of women, not only does the health, the nutrition, and education of their own children improve, but often entire society and community from where they come from. We know that for sure. The reason why women's representation in positions of leadership, C-suite I'm talking about, they are not advancing, it's less than 27%, is because of animals like us, men. This thing called patriarchy. And I am a beneficiary of patriarchy. You guys must say, also we are beneficiaries of white privilege. So what are we going to do to make sure that we bring women into the economic mainstream? Because that's sustainable. Business must lead on transformation. Business must lead to get us out of this fiscal crisis. Because it is a fiscal crisis. So first 4 years of this 9 wasted years, we have lost 1.5 trillion just to state capture. Imagine what we could have done in educating our children in institutions of higher learning. Because if we were to educate all 1.2 million in all universities, that's 53 billion per annum. We have 1.5 trillion. That's 2/3 of what we collect through SARS a year every year. In the last 9 years, we've been suffering off out of this economy 100 billion just to the 2 Zubda families. Imagine how many pit latrines would have built, would have eliminated pit latrines in all the schools. But today the reality is that if you go, especially in the Eastern Cape, kids still learn under the trees. Still 120 per class. And they go to the river for ablution facilities. 25 years into democracy. We need to lead business on growing this economy, because if we don't grow the size of the cake, very soon we'll be talking about the redistribution of poverty, not of wealth. Business must lead in keeping the few jobs that we have, so that we can create jobs in large numbers to give our people their self-worth, their self-respect. There is no glory, no joy, no pride in being one of the 18 million people who are on social security, when only 16 million of us are gainfully employed. 4.8 million are responsible for 80% of the revenue collections. It's not sustainable. Lastly, business must also lead on taking this notion of education seriously. We must grow our own team. It's not the job of government. Because we are the only country in Africa that became free from our colonial masters, and we did not intentionally improve the quality of our education. 1957, Kwame Nkrumah, first country to be free of colonialism. 10 years into democracy, they boasted of 80% literacy rate. Even Gabriel Robert Mugabe, in spite of the 1,001 challenges confronting this bread basket of Africa before it was pillaged, can boast today of 94% literacy rate. What we have to show for it? The last FAIRS study, FIRS, says 80% of grade 4 learners cannot read with comprehension. Therefore, we must take this notion of education serious. Not because it's the shortest way of transcending social classes. Not because you can be born in Alexander, 4 kilometers from the richest square mile in the continent. But because when one stately bends the midnight oil, one gains access to the domain of knowledge and wisdom, the world of meaning, the world that cannot be conquered without a persistent crusade. So when we talk to our 86-year-olds, we look them in the centerpiece of the pupils of their eyes and say, business cannot continue to be an island of prosperity in a sea of poverty. Business must continue to do well by doing good. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.